Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a Thanksgiving edition of the 2-Bit Review. Now, I'm not really going to look at a Thanksgiving themed video game. I decided to return to a family favorite series of the 2-Bit household. In particular, when I was a little 2-Bit, you know, when I was a kid, we would gather around the TV and we would watch RoboCop. Yes, when I was a kid, that was one of the family films. I'm not going to go into my childhood here, but hey, that's what we watched. So I love RoboCop. It is always a fun viewing, and I decided, why don't I take a look at a RoboCop game? I mean, hell, I did that a few years ago on the original NES, but I thought, let's go ahead and skip over all of those games that have probably been talked about to death, especially RoboCop versus Terminator, and let me look at a game in the 6th generation of video games, in particular on the original Xbox, and that is RoboCop on the original Xbox. Let's jump right in. RoboCop is a first-person shooter developed and published by Tidbits Interactive. It was released in North America in the summer of 2003 for the original Xbox. There aren't many tidbits on this title, and you know, that's always promising when there is almost little to no information about the development of this game. It bears mentioning that this is also the same developer that gave us Superman 64. So yeah, Tidbits had planned to make a PS2 and GameCube port, but sadly, those were never released in North America. Strangely enough, this game was ported to several different regions and countries on other consoles besides Xbox. There is a PC release in Germany for RoboCop, and most of Europe also got a PS2 port of RoboCop. Strangely enough, the GameCube version was only released in Japan. So that's all the ports that we actually got of this game. It turns out that Tidbits had got the license to make a RoboCop game all the way back in 1999. At that time, before RoboCop ended up in development hell, it seems they had initial intentions for a Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, and PS2 port. But thanks to development hell and fast forwarding a good, 3 to 4 years, and Microsoft being hungry for any game to be on their new platform, RoboCop came out on the original Xbox. Now, this game was universally panned, but I'm gonna give it a chance. So, dead or alive, this game's going to be reviewed by us. Let's do this. Gameplay, and in particular controls, are really rough. Now, I get it, you're playing RoboCop. He's not exactly a fast-moving person, but you could have sped up and fine-tuned the controls a bit because you move like a fucking tank. Wherever you go, you're super slow, and your reaction time is also very slow. Now, I, for one, do not like inverted controls. So when I play a game and the default setting is inverted controls, I like to go to the options and change that. For some reason in this game, maybe I'm missing it. Please let me know, Internet. But I did not find any option to switch the invert off. So I had to play this entire game with inverted controls, which I hate. I absolutely hate inverted controls. And it made the experience even worse for me. Now, wherever old Beham Blue Box is, I'm pretty sure she's listening to this right now and saying, but I love inverted controls. And you know what, Ginger? That was great for you, but for me, not so much. So, given two options, either A, having my nuts cut off, dipped in butter, and then sauteed, and then thrown on a stick and forced to eat it, that'd be option A, right? And then option B, having to deal with these shitty controls, I'm really tempted to go with A. Now that we're done with the crappy controls, let's move on to game mechanics and level design. Every mission starts out with a main objective, but there also are side objectives that you can pursue while completing the main objective. These can be from arresting criminals with outstanding warrants and overall just closing out cold cases in OCP. On paper, this is a great idea, because you're doing the hard detective/cop work that RoboCop needs to do to clean up the streets of New Detroit. In reality, all of these essentially end up being the same thing. You must shoot a criminal in the leg or in another non-lethal area to quote-unquote arrest them to close the case. And you don't really get anything extra for it besides having a better score at the end of the level. Another recurring objective is to save civilians or captured cops, and again, it only adds to your score. There's no real big reason to do it. You can still complete the level without doing any of this stuff. Your enemies also aren't that diverse. The main enemy you will have in this game is your thug/bad guy with a gun. And that's who you're going to be fighting through most of the game. And luckily, they're dumb as hell. A lot of times, they'll just stand right out in the street and let you shoot at them. There's also robots that you can fight, like the Ed 209s, the famous one from the movie. And they're slightly more challenging than the regular thugs with guns, but they're also dumb as hell. They'll just sit out in the middle of nowhere and let you just shoot them. You can hide behind something and shoot them. So there's almost no challenge to the enemies, except for one. There is this robot in the mid to late part of the game that can one-hit kill you, and it is very frustrating. You see, another great game mechanic that they put into this title is the fact that there are no checkpoints. So when you start a level, you have to play that level from beginning to end with no checkpoints and no saving. So if you get 3/4 of the way through a level and you are killed by, say, one of these, robots that can just one-hit kill you, guess what? Your ass is starting that entire level over again. So it is incredibly frustrating. You have some boss battles in this game too, but frankly, they're not that memorable, as the bosses behave just like the regular enemies, except for the ending. Now, the ending boss fight is a bit different from what you encounter in most of the game. Now, there is a lot of shoot the bad guy stuff, but there's some puzzle elements to it as well. So, it has a little bit more chutzpah than the rest of the bosses in the game. That being said, they again did screw that section up too. The boss has a weak spot, but it doesn't show the weak spot consistently. Usually an enemy has a pattern to it. Well, the final boss, it's kind of random when it shows its weak spot. Now, how does RoboCop fight these dastardly villains? Well, there is a limited, and I do mean limited, assortment of weapons. You have, of course, the classic RoboCop handgun, which is awesome to use, at least for the first 5 minutes. You have his classic machine gun arm thing, and you got a rocket launcher, grenade launcher, and a nice little spiffy laser gun that really helps out with those one-hit kill robots. You just gotta kill them first before they kill you. You got a lightning gun you get at the end of the game, which is really helpful and pretty cheap. You also have power-ups. You have a tool chest that can repair your armor, baby food, because remember in the first movie, when he didn't even eat the baby food. I think he just used the baby food for target practice, but hey, they got that reference in this game. That'll refill your health. RoboCop also has the ability to go into what I would call, I guess, his sniper mode or his zoom up mode. This really helps out when you gotta kill a bad guy who's too high up to shoot just from the hip, or if there is a civilian being held hostage. This will help you make a precision shot to kill the bad guy and save the civilian. RoboCop also has different visual modes, like a thermal mode. This helps out if you're looking for a civilian, like you hear them, but you can't quite find out where they're at, especially because when you're near a civilian that needs to be saved or a cop that's been captured that also needs to be saved, the cop that gives you your mission briefing at the beginning of every level, and he also helps you out, and I use that loosely throughout the level, he will not stop mentioning how there is a civilian that needs to be saved, and you can't find him, but he keeps reminding you over and over again. This thermal mode at least helps you go, oh, there they are, they were hidden behind this thing right here. There's also a dedicated button for RoboCop's little handgun trick. You know, when he spins the gun around? Yeah, you know, he did that a couple of times in the movies. So, hey, we gotta make a dedicated button. We could have mapped some other stuff to this button that would make it more useful, but no, we're gonna dedicate this button to RoboCop's fucking parlor trick. I forgot to mention you can also pick up ammo throughout the game, but I figured, you know, first-person shooter, that's a given. I actually like the designs of the level in this game. They're not that bad. The big issue here is they're empty. There's huge swaths of these levels that are completely empty. The NPCs and enemies seem to be concentrated only in a few spots. It really feels like this game is not complete. Like they needed to put more enemies and NPCs, or just more things in general to interact with. It just, almost all of the levels feel very empty. So you know what? I'm not gonna buy for $1 RoboCop's gameplay. I give it a half bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. Sound effects are mediocre. Some of the guns sound decent, but most of them, they could have done a better job. A lot of it sounds really muffled and compressed. One thing they did get right, though, is the sound of RoboCop moving. I mean, you sound very slow and robotic through most of the game. The music, I don't really remember, and I even went back and listened to my captures, and still I can't recall any of the music. It's very low-key and just fades into the background. Now, the voice acting may be so bad and so terrible that it's actually good. I had a lot of laughs listening to some of the voice acting in this game. Now, RoboCop sounds terrible. It doesn't sound anything like RoboCop, so that gets an F. The police officer that always gives you your little mission briefing is absolutely terrible, but there is a villain about a quarter of the way in this game, and I'm just going to let you guys listen to it after I give my score, because it is so terrible that I actually think it's a masterpiece. So sound gets 1 bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
Oh no! RoboCop!
Visually, this game is a bit rough looking. I mean, after all, Tidus did acquire the license in 1999, and without a doubt, they probably started working on making a RoboCop game. So even by 2003 standards, this game looks a little long in the tooth. Now, it doesn't look like a N64 game by any means, but the textures are very bland, and especially the NPCs, they look like shit. They do look like they would probably belong on the N64. Now, RoboCop himself looks decent, and some of the robots look pretty good, but especially the human NPCs, yeah, they look like they're just one step above PlayStation and N64 models. You get to travel all over Neo Detroit. The sad thing is, the vast majority of locations you visit are post-industrial decay in theme. You got the streets of Neo Detroit, the sewers of Neo Detroit, the junkyard of Neo Detroit, the oil rigs of Neo Detroit, which I did not know there was oil in the Great Lakes, but you learn something new every day. You also visit OCP's private labs and OCP Tower itself. So you do get to see a lot of the locations that were in the movies. Now, the plot to this game takes heavy, in fact, actually, it steals a lot of its story from RoboCop and RoboCop 2 in particular. Nefarious evil company wanting to take control of city, check. Criminal boss working with evil company to help take over the city, check. Cyborg slash robot gone rogue that RoboCop has to take down? Check. So yeah, they completely stole RoboCop and RoboCop 2's stories. Now, how they deliver this story is rather lazy. How it's mostly done is through briefings at the beginning of levels, and also news clips that appear at the end of levels. There's not a whole lot of cutscenes here. But basically our plot is certain people in OCP are wanting to get rid of the current mayor of Neo Detroit so they can install their own guy, which I guess would give OCP control over the city, which, have they ever heard of just donating to people's campaigns? I mean, with Citizens United, money is speech and corporations are people, so they could just buy off the current mayor. I'm pretty sure he's a neoliberal or a conservative. They love taking money from corporations and giving said corporations whatever they want. It's legalized bribery. One of the ways OCP plans to accomplish this is by making the current mayor look very bad. And how they accomplish it is by flooding the streets with drugs, in particular a drug called Brain Drain, how original, and working hand in glove with Neo Detroit's underworld crime boss, Nex. OCP also put a crazy rogue AI in charge of their drug, Brain Drain, and guess what the robot's name is? Mind. So RoboCop does what he does best. He cleans the street of criminals and gets to the bottom of this dastardly conspiracy. Unfortunately, OCP frames RoboCop for the assassination of the mayor. Yeah, that escalated very quickly. They, I guess, thought, oh, we're not going to get our way, so let's kill the mayor off and frame RoboCop. Then RoboCop says, I've had enough of this shit, heads to OCP, kills the Mind, and gets all the evidence against OCP and releases it to the public. That's the simplest way I could describe the plot to this game. To be honest though, this game does a shit job of conveying the plot to you. So when you add, even for the time, low quality graphics, and a plot that was ripped straight from RoboCop 1 and 2, and Brain Drain, which, I didn't mention this earlier, is definitely a ripoff from Batman Forever, remember the Riddler's Brain Drain? Makes me not even want to buy this presentation for 1 penny. I give it a half bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. Wow, that was a game. Again, this is another game that should have been in the oven for a little bit longer than it was. It feels very incomplete in a lot of places. My final verdict for RoboCop on the original Xbox is a recommended throw in the trash can for the casual and hardcore collector of the original Xbox. This game isn't really giving you anything. It's not particularly fun to play. In fact, I had fun for the first, 10 or so minutes. I was like, oh, I could do a little gun trick that he did that one time before he was RoboCop. And, oh, look, baby food that he didn't really eat. He kind of shot at it. And it's like it's RoboCop, but it's not. It's like they didn't even watch the movie, or if they did watch the movie, they watched the movie, on fast forward and only picked up a few little details here and there. That's this game. So again, yeah, I don't recommend it. In fact, if you want to buy it, you can buy it online for around $11 to $25 depending on its condition, and you can buy it and you could throw it away so no one else has to waste that $11 to $25 on this title. Please do that for society. I highly recommend it. And that ends my Thanksgiving review. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought of RoboCop on the original Xbox. And be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ding the bell. That way you don't miss a thing. And with that, this review is done. I hope you guys have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. And as always, stay safe and play on.